A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver. The Lone Ranger. His faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver! Let's go, big fellow! Hi-yo, Silver! Away!
Old Judge Yates' word was law to the people of the town of Cold Creek. He took his legal authority very seriously. For a livelihood, he depended upon his general store, which in time of need served as the courtroom. The judge believed less in procedure than he did in getting to the point when some question came before him for settlement. One day, a curious crowd gathered in the barn-like general store to hear Judge Yates decide what to them was the most unusual case in the town's history. The judge, sitting behind his old battered desk at one end of the store, started things off without bothering about formalities.
All right, now, everybody, let's have some quiet in here so the body can get a word in edgeways. That's better. Now, as I see it, we have a peculiar sort of case here to decide. We all know that Zeb Peters and Nick Wilson owned a mining claim together. And we all know that each one of them willed his share to the other. So if one of them died first, the other'd own the whole mine. That right? Yeah, that's right. All right, then. About a week ago, those two old prospectors, Zeb and Nick, were both hurt bad, trying to use blasting powder when they didn't know nothing about using it. And they both died. Now, before we go any further, I want to have Red Hurlock tell what happened that day that they was found. Red, come up here and tell what you know about it.
I told you all about that once, Judge.
Tarnation, take it, Red. You have to tell it here, where we're holding court, so the folks will get to hear all about the case. Now get on with your story.
Well, it was this way, Judge. I was hitting the trail of town that day. I overtook Doc Stillmore's rig coming along the hillside. Hi there, Doc. Seem to be in a hurry to get back to town. Oh, boy, hold it.
Look, Red, if you're heading for town, will you do me a favor?
Well, sure. What do you want me to do, Doc?
Get to the sheriff and coroner. Tell them Zeb Peters and Nick Wilson are both dead.
Both dead?
Yes. I have a case back out on the trail. If you give them the news, it'll save me a trip back to town.
I'll take them the news, all right, but tell me what happened to Zeb and Nick.
Well, a while ago, I was driving along in my rig when I heard an explosion over in the direction of their claim. I got over there in a hurry and found both of them hurt bad. They tried to use blasting powder. They were still alive when I got there, but they both died soon. Nothing I could do.
Golly, Moses, that's sure bad. I'll get right to town and spread the news, Doc.
Thanks a lot, Red. It'll save me a trip. Now, I'll turn around and make that call I started on. Bag up there, boys. Bag up. Sit down. Bag up. Get up there. Get on now.
Get up there. Doc came into town, and, well, everybody here knows the rest.
Quiet down, all of you. Stop that infernal racket so as I can get on with the case. Now, Tom Wellman is here representing the widow Slater, who is Zeb Peters' closest kin. And Stu Cleves is here to represent Elvira Wilson, Nick's closest kin. Is that right?
That's right, Judge. As Zeb's heir, the widow has a claim to that mine.
Your Honor, in behalf of my client, Miss Elvira Wilson, I propose to present a brief in this case which will show...
Hold on, Stu Cleves. Just because you did a bit of your law reading in St. Louis, you don't have to put on with big terms that'll confuse the folks here. Miss Elvira's putting in a claim to that mine, too, as I see it.
Give them each half the gold mine.
Sure, that's fair.
Quiet! Who's running this court, you or me? The law's the law, and everything's going to be done legal as long as I'm the judge here. Now, as I see it, if Zeb died first, even if it was only a few minutes ahead of Nick, then Nick legally inherited that mine. And then with him dying, it would legally go to his closest kin, in this case, Miss Elvira. If it was the other way around, then the mine legally goes to the widow.
Yeah, but who knows which died first?
How you going to tell, Judge?
Judge Yates, I have something to say.
Oh, keep quiet, everybody. Let Tom Wellman have his say.
If there wasn't any way to prove which died first, I reckon the widow would agree to divide the mine with Miss Elvira. But Doc Stillmore ought to be able to tell us which one really died first. He was there when they passed on.
That's right. He told me so that day.
Judge, my client, Miss Elvira Wilson, would never agree to divide the mine because we know it's rightfully hers.
Oh, what makes you so sure? We should have had Doc Stillmore here to testify.
Doc Stillmore is away from town on a critical case. Now, you all know Miss Wilson is housekeeper for the doctor. Before he left last night, he gave Miss Wilson this note, signed by him, saying Zeb Peters died first.
Here, let me see that note. Let's see here. This is in Doc's handwriting, all right. If Zeb died first, then the mine went to Nick, according to Zeb's will.
That's right. Then Nick died. So his estate, the entire mine, goes to his nearest of kin, Miss Elvira Wilson.
Wait a minute, Judge. I object to accepting that note as final. We ought to hear Doc Stillmore's testimony from him in person.
Well, I reckon you have a good objection there, Wellman. We'll put off this court till day after tomorrow. Get Doc Stillmore into court then. But if he doesn't show up, I'll accept the note as proof.
I object, Judge. It isn't legal to accept that note as proof.
Listen to me, Tom Wellman. I don't need you or anyone else to tell me what's legal and what ain't. But if you're so anxious to have things done right, then find Doc Stillmore and have him here to testify when the court reopens day after tomorrow.
I don't know where to find Dr. Stillmore. Miss Elvira, his housekeeper, told me he was called away on a critical case when she wasn't at home. So she doesn't know where he went.
Well, now, just the same, you're the one who's raising the objection, Wellman. So it's up to you to get the doc here to testify.
Judge, I have witnesses who will testify, if necessary, that the note is in the doctor's handwriting.
I know Doc Stillmore's handwriting, Stu Cleves, but that's not the question before the court.
I say Wellman has no right to question your authority to accept that note as proof if Dr. Stillmore fails to appear in person at the next court session.
Oh, quiet. Quiet, all of you. I'll clear the courtroom.
Judge, I still say it isn't legal.
Hold on, Wellman. Like I said, get Doc Stillmore into court day after tomorrow, or I'll accept that note as proof. If you want to protest my ruling after that, it's up to you. Court dismissed.
A short time later, Stu Cleves visited his client, Elvira Wilson, and told her of the court proceedings. As she opened the door for him to leave, Elvira asked,
Mr. Cleves, do you think Judge Yates will accept that note as proof?
Knowing the judge as I do, I'm sure he will. No, Wellman's objections aren't going to have any effect.
But if the doctor eventually shows up...
Leave that to me, Miss Wilson. I doubt that Dr. Stillmore will ever show up.
I left his buggy at the blacksmith shop to be fixed and cleaned.
Good. You just leave things to me. After the next court session, you'll be sole owner of that mine Zeb and Nick used to own.
That same afternoon, Dan Reed, teenage nephew of the Lone Ranger, went to the blacksmith shop, while Tonto rode back to their camp in the hills. Tonto told the Lone Ranger what had taken place in court. Almost an hour later, Dan Reed reined to a halt at the camp.
Oh, Victor. Oh, boy, steady, fella.
Did you have Victor's shoe fixed, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Took you longer than I expected.
Well, I had to wait my turn at the blacksmith's.
I see.
Blacksmith didn't charge me anything because I did something for him while I waited.
I've been noticing your clothes. Must have been a dirty job.
Oh, I tried to brush that off, but it's some kind of white dust.
Well, let's see. Looks like white clay. I've never seen anything like that around this territory. Oh, what did you do for the blacksmith?
Well, Miss Wilson, you know, Dr. Stillmore's housekeeper, left the doctor's rig to have a spoke fixed and to have it washed. I washed it while the blacksmith repaired Victor's shoe.
But you told me you washed the doctor's buggy for him yesterday, isn't that right?
Well, yes, sir. It was dusty yesterday, and the doctor asked me if I'd do him the favor of washing it. He offered me money, but I didn't take it. He must have made a long trip last night to get that white clay all over it. There wasn't any of that on it yesterday.
I see. Well, now that Dr. Stillmore is back in town, the question of the gold mine will be settled. Tonto was telling me about it.
Oh, I heard about that, too. But the doctor's still away.
Still away? How do you know that?
Well, after he finished with Victor, the blacksmith asked me to drive the rig to Dr. Stillmore's house. I tied Victor behind and drove it over. Ho there, ho!
Just leave it there. I'll have someone attend to the horse.
All right, ma'am. Doctor had a long trip last night. The rig was mighty dirty.
Dr. Stillmore hasn't used it since yesterday, young man. In fact, the doctor went away on a call some distance from here. He left the rig and rode horseback.
Well, but he mustn't have used this rig since yesterday. It was so dirty. And,
I know what I'm talking about, boy. Now go along and just leave it where it is. I've no time to argue with you.
God, that's funny. Steady, boys. Come on, Victor. So I left the doctor's rig standing in front of his house and came on out here. That woman sure seemed angry because I started to tell her I didn't see how the rig got so dirty if it wasn't used.
Your attitude was strange, Dan.
Well, me hear what Dan say, Kimasabi. Men say doctor leave town last night. If him not use buggy, he not savvy how it get dirty again.
That's what I don't understand.
Maybe Miss Wilson used it last night. I'm sure somebody did.
I don't know of any white clay such as you found on the rig anywhere near here, Dan. And Miss Wilson certainly wouldn't go driving that buggy at night. It would be too dangerous.
That's right. If doctor not get back soon, me hear her get gold mine.
Well, I heard that, too. They say a man named Stu Cleves gave Judge Yates a note from the doctor. If the doctor isn't back day after tomorrow, Miss Wilson gets the gold mine.
Oh, I know that fellow Cleves. He's mighty clever. Tonto, we'll leave at dawn to search for a place where there might be white clay.
Me not savvy.
Things don't quite tie in, Tonto. Dan washed the doctor's buggy yesterday after the doctor came in from his rounds. That housekeeper, Elvira Wilson, says it hasn't been used. Yet Dan found it covered with white clay today.
That's right. Sure was hard to wash off, too.
I know.
Why you hunt for place where there's strange clay, Kimasabi?
I think if we find that place, we'll find the answer to many things, including the whereabouts of Dr. Stillmore.
But if the doctor didn't go in that rig, then how do you expect...
Then, a lot depends upon Dr. Stillmore's absence. It's occurred to me that perhaps he didn't go away on a case at all. I think Dr. Stillmore may be in danger, Tonto. That's why we must find out where there's white clay, such as that found on the doctor's buggy.
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger adventure. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now to continue. The following morning at dawn, the Lone Ranger and Tonto left camp and started a methodical search for a location showing signs of the unusual white clay. The search was extended throughout the day without success. Finally, they returned to camp for the night. Early the next morning, Dan and Tonto went to town to hear the latest news. They stopped in front of the general store and dismounted.
Victor.
Easy, Scout. Easy, fella.
See, the judge has the sign on the door saying there's a court session this afternoon.
Ah. This day, them tell who get gold mine. Come, we walk down street.
Seems to be a lot of people about this morning.
Ah. And come for court, maybe.
Oh, yes, I hadn't thought of that. Look, coming out of Mr. Cleve's office. That's Miss Wilson.
That's right.
Good morning, Miss Wilson.
Morning, young man.
Has Dr. Stillmore come back yet?
No, he has not, and I don't know when he will be back. Why do you ask?
I was just wondering, that's all.
Seems to me you ask a lot of questions for a boy. What the doctor does is his own business. Good morning, please.
Woman not like answer questions, Dan.
Yes, I know. She glared at me mighty hard, too. Look, there's a single prairie schooner going through town.
I'm gonna stop for supplies, maybe. Why, you stand watch wagon, Dan.
Tonto, I was thinking. The wagon's so awfully dirty, it's covered with white dust, sort of.
That right. Come, we go. Look close.
Tonto, it's white clay just like what was on the doctor's rig.
That right.
What are you staring at, boy?
Oh, I was noticing that funny-looking dirt on your wagon wheels. It looks like clay.
It is clay. Because of that blasted stuff, we got mired and lost the rest of the wagon train last evening.
It's funny, I never saw any clay like that around. Where did you get mired? Very far from here?
Oh, about 9 or 10 miles east of here, where a creek runs through a little valley. Lots of lime dust around there that gets into the soil and makes that clay a good place to stay away from, especially with a wagon. Which way's the cafe, son?
Oh, back that way.
Oh, thanks. Be seeing you again, maybe.
Now, come, Dan. We get Lone Ranger.
Steady, boy. He'll backtrack that wagon and find the place where the white clay is, Tonto.
Now, we hurry. Get him up, Scout.
Come on, Victor.
Soon, Dan and Tonto hurriedly drew rein at the camp.
Oh, Victor,
What did you find out?
A prairie schooner came into town. It was covered with that same kind of clay.
That right.
Which way did it come from?
A man say him come from east about 9-10 miles. Get mired in clay and valley.
Here, Silver. Dan, you stay here in camp until we come back. We might run into trouble. Easy, steady, big fella.
Yes, sir. Steady.
We have some hard riding to do, Tonto.
We hurry now.
Come on, Silver.
Get him up, Scout.
After skirting the town, the Lone Ranger and Tonto picked up the trail of the heavy wagon and backtracked its trail eastward. They rode in silence for a long time. Then the Lone Ranger spoke.
Look, Tonto. Those ruts show the white clay. We're coming to the place at last.
Man tell Dan, wagon come through small valley near creek.
We're riding into a small valley now.
We see creek ahead, Kimasabi.
Keep your eyes open for any sign of habitation, Tonto, such as a shack or cabin.
Me do it. Wagon tracks plain, plenty deep here.
If the doctor's buggy were driven along here, those wagon tracks would cover up the marks made by it.
That's right. Me think maybe the... Wait, Kimasabi. Go, Scott.
Oh, Silver. Oh. Steady.
Tracks and narrow wheels go off from trail to hill.
This must be where the doctor turned off. Now we're getting someplace. We'll follow those tracks. Come on, Silver. Come on.
Up, Scout.
Keeping on the alert, the Lone Ranger and Tonto rode slowly along the trail left by the wheels of the doctor's rig. After a short distance, they came to a turn in the trail where it rounded the side of a small hill. Then Tonto pointed ahead.
There's small shack in clump of trees yonder.
That's what we're looking for, Tonto. We'll have to approach cautiously. There's no telling.
Shot come from behind.
Someone trailed us from town. They shoot again right on. No matter what you might think has happened, don't hesitate.
But what do you think? Oh! Get him up, Scout!
Stu was right. This masked hombre was out snooping. He isn't going to snoop any longer. That redskin was scared to death the way he rode off. Hey, I could use that stallion. I'd better see if that hombre's really done for. Look at those guns.
I hoped you'd come close enough.
Hey, I thought you were got thought wrong.
This time I'll make sure you get a
bullet. Try it.
Oh, Scout, oh, fella. Oh, you all right, Kemosabe?
Yes, Tonto. My trick worked. We'll tie that dirty polecat and leave him here for a moment. And we'll investigate that shack back there.
After tying the gunman, the Lone Ranger and Tonto mounted Silver and Scout and started toward the shack.
We'll separate and approach the shack from two sides, Tonto. Whoever is there must have heard the shots a few minutes ago, so they'll be watching. Ride in fast and keep firing at the windows.
Me go this way. Get him up, Scout.
Come on, Silver.
As the masked man and Indian closed in on the shack, they each realized from the return fire, which came from behind the shack, that there must be only one gunman. They both withheld their fire as a figure suddenly darted from the back doorway and headed into a grove of trees.
Come on, Silver.
The masked man swerved and headed toward the grove, from which a moment later the man rode at breakneck speed. The Lone Ranger glanced back and saw Tonto stop and dismount at the shack with ready gun. Then the masked man turned his attention to catching the fleeing gunman.
Faster, Silver, faster.
The gunman had turned and fired, but the movement of his galloping horse spoiled his aim. Once more he turned and pointed his gun, but nothing happened.
The gun must be empty. Come on, Silver.
Quickly, the great stallion moved closer to the rider ahead. Then as he closed in, the Lone Ranger swung his lariat, which snaked out and settled over the gunman's body.
Ho, Silver, ho! Easy, steady, big fella. That did it.
The Lone Ranger quickly used his lariat to tie the crook who had been stunned by the fall. Then the masked man mounted Silver, and leaving the bound gunman where he was for the time being, rode back to the shack to meet Tonto.
Ho, Silver, ho! Easy, steady now.
As he entered the shack, the masked man found Tonto standing beside Dr. Stillmore, who sat on a cot rubbing his wrists.
First an Indian, now a masked man. What's this all about?
We're friends, Doctor. We came to find you.
Briefly, the Lone Ranger told the doctor all that had happened. When he finished, the doctor spoke.
Oh, so that's it. Well, two men came to my house at night and took me right from my own living room at gunpoint. They tied me to a horse, then brought me here, where I've been tied up ever since.
You're lucky to be alive. They would have killed you later. Oh, what about the note that appeared in court, Doctor?
My housekeeper and that man Cleves drove out here in my buggy. They made me sign that note. They're cousins. They want to get the entire mine for themselves.
I see. As soon as we bring Cleves' two gunmen here to the shack and leave them tied for the sheriff, we'll take you back to town as quickly as possible to clear up that note.
I'll be mighty glad of the chance to do it, mister.
Good. Come, Tonto. Let's bring those two crooks here to the shack. Then we'll start for town.
Early that afternoon, Judge Yates again set up his court in the general store.
Quiet! Quiet, all of you. Now we'll get right to the point on this case and get it settled once and for all.
Judge, if you'll give me a little more time, I'm sure when Dr. Stillmore returns, he'll
Miss Wilson tells me the doctor may not return for some time, Judge. I again offer the note signed by Dr. Stillmore as evidence that my client, Elvira Wilson, is the legal heir to the gold mine.
Now, look at here, folks. If you can't keep quiet, you'll have to get out. Is Dr. Stillmore in the courtroom?
Oh, darn well he isn't, Judge. Why ask foolish questions?
I'm going about this legal, that's what. Now, since Dr. Stillmore isn't in the courtroom to give testimony, I hereby allow that the note he wrote is good enough evidence to show...
Judge, I object. I still say it's illegal to accept that note as final proof.
Quiet! Objection overruled, Tom Wellman. What I do in this court is legal to my way of thinking, and it's my ruling that the note Doc Stillmore wrote will be accepted as final proof that Zeb Peters died first. And Nick Wilson, who inherited the mine from Zeb, died right after that. Therefore, this court hereby finds that...
everything, Judge. Hey.
Well, what do you know? Doc Stillmore.
I happened to hear part of what you was just saying, and I'm here to tell you that note doesn't mean a thing.
Wait, now, hold on, Doc. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Raise your right hand.
I do.
Go on about the note.
Stu Cleves hired two gunmen to take me from my house at gunpoint. Later, in a shack in the hills, Cleves and my housekeeper, Elvira, came out there and forced me to write that note.
I object, Judge. This witness is lying under oath.
Shut up, Stu. Go ahead, Doc.
Zeb Peters actually died last. and the mine goes to the widow by right of inheritance.
What? You mean to tell this court Stu Cleves and Elvira forced you to write that note?
He and my housekeeper are in cahoots. They're cousins.
Hey, you old fool.
Oh, someone shot through the open window.
Cleves right in the arm.
Sheriff, better come up here and put Stu Cleves where he belongs. And take Miss Elvira, too. I hereby declare the widow Slater as the legal heir to the gold mine. Well, Doc, looks like you had a friend or two on your side. That shot saved your life just now.
The one who fired that shot sure proved to be a real friend in need, Judge. He found me and brought me here, and he risked his own life to do it. Two of Stu Cleves' gunmen are tied up tight in a shack about 9 miles from here.
Good, Doc. The sheriff will send men to bring him in. Where'd you ever find a friend like the one you spoke about, Doc?
Oh, well, the man I'm talking about is everybody's friend, excepting, of course, anyone who fights the law. You see, he's known as the Lone Ranger.
What? The Lone Ranger? Well, what do you know?